Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 247 DIY and a video within a video. The larger video that we're filming here, if you're not subscribed to the channel, is we just got new wheels here for the WRX and we're just sort of finalizing the last few little things that we needed to make sure that we got the fitment right for these new wheels. And one of those things was we needed to install these ARP extended wheel studs. And I figured it would just be better to film this as a separate video in case you're searching YouTube, trying to figure out how to do it on your own, because these GD models can be a little bit tricky, specifically in the rear end. And I'll show you a trick that I went ahead and did to make installing these extended wheel studs much less of a headache. All right, we'll go ahead and start here on the front because this is just going to be the easiest, the most straightforward to get these studs installed. There's really nothing too crazy about this. First thing we got to do is remove the caliper, so we'll take off the two 17mm bolts on the back side. Take our rotor right off, and then all we're going to be doing is just hammering these studs out. I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but there's this little recess here in the hub, and that is going to help us out, especially getting these longer wheel studs back in, but there's plenty of room to get the ARP studs in there. We're just going to take a sledgehammer, pound these stock studs out, and then we'll work on getting the longer ones in. All right, and then all we're gonna do is take our ARP stud, slide it in there. I don't know how necessary it is, but I do kind of like to twist it until you feel the grooves, because if you look at the way these press into the holes in the hub, you can see there's this knurled end on it, and so they actually kind of like grab into the metal. And so again, like I said, I don't know if it's necessary, but I like to kind of twist it until I feel those line up with the indents from the old studs. And then I just take a old nut that's much wider than the stud, and this is pretty much primarily just what I use this nut for. So you can see it's all kind of damaged there. I slide that over just as a little bit of a spacer, and then a sacrificial lug nut. This is just a stock, I think this is a Forester lug nut. I mean, all Subaru lug nuts are pretty much the same, but I believe this is one of the ones that goes to the Forester, and I just took an angle grinder. I cut the top off to make it an open end lug nut. And then we just take our impact and we're just going to hit it until the seating lip here on the stud touches the hub. So you're just going to watch that until it draws it through, it seats it flat against the hub, and then you'll also know it's seated because the sound of the impact will change once it's tight. There we go, easy as that. So we'll start with the same thing for the rear. We're gonna go ahead and get the caliper off first. In this case, because I'm running the 2-pot calipers from a WRX in the rear, I ran adapters, and so we're using an Allen key here. And then if I'm lucky, like the other side, these brakes are basically still brand new, and there wasn't much of a lip. The parking brake shouldn't grab. Yep, I should be able to get the rotor right off. And then the next thing we're going to go ahead and do here is disassemble the parking brake assembly. We need to get these shoes out of here, so we're just going to go ahead and take everything off. I've said in the past in some of my videos that it's always a great idea to just go ahead and take your phone, snap some pictures of these. That way, when you're ready to put it back together, chances are you're not going to remember exactly how it came off. So if you have those pictures to reference, it's really helpful. Then we're going to go ahead and remove these 4 Allen nuts here on the ABS ring. And then this is where I guess I should tell you exactly what we're doing. In a perfect world, to install these extended lug studs, what you would do is you would actually pull your whole hub assembly off, but these older Subarus use press-in style wheel bearings. And so at the very least, that means just replacing the inner bearing, reusing your hub portion, but replacing that bearing. And believe it or not, even though this is a 2002, those bearings are still not cheap if you go with a factory Subaru one, which I prefer to do when it comes to wheel bearings. Plus, it's just kind of a nightmare having to pull these and press them, and it's not very fun to deal with. So there's a way that you can do this that's been used quite frequently in the past. Your ABS sensor comes right through the back side of your parking brake backing plate here. We're going to unbolt that, and then that's going to give you access. Now, there's 2 things that you can do. Probably the better option is people will drill out the hole because the head of the studs still won't fit through this hole after you remove the sensor. But then your sensor is being placed in a hole that's not the same size as the sensor. In my opinion, I don't know. I just don't like the idea of that sensor kind of just being bolted into free space after that. The other way that people do it, and it's the way I did it on that side and the way I'm going to go ahead and do it again on this side, is you just have to take the stud, and I'll film all this in a minute, but you just grind the outer diameter of the head off so that it will pull through that hole. And it's not very much material you have to remove. I found plenty of people that have done it that way, including people that autocross their vehicles and stuff like that. None of them have had a failure. It seems to be just fine. But I'll mention now, even before I go ahead and film the part where we grind the heads down on those, do that at your own risk. You are removing some of the material that's like the gripping portion that holds to the back side of your hub face. Like I said, because it's been used time and time again, I found plenty of people on the internet back when these GD Imprezas were a bit more popular that did it that way, and they've run into no issues. So that's why I'm confident doing it. I'm not telling you that this is the ideal way to do it. If you do it at your own risk. But we're going to go ahead and take these Allen bolts here out of our ABS ring because we're going to need that freed up in order to get the clearance that we need to get the longer studs in. Then on the inside, you can actually see the back side of the bolt we're going to be removing. We're going to remove the bolt that holds the ABS sensor and mounts it to the back side of this plate. All right, so yeah, that was a pain. That bolt did end up snapping off. There was enough stick through on this side where I tried to cut a couple flats in it and twist it off, and then as you can kind of see, the captive nut actually broke its welds and the captive nut came off. So that's at least out of there now. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I think I can probably just use a through bolt with a nut to achieve the same thing, but we've pulled the ABS sensor now out, so now we have access to this opening here. All right, and so as far as modifying the ARP studs that are going to go in, as I said, we're just going to grind some of the lip off here so that this will fit through that hole in the backing plate for the parking brake setup. So I did wrap the threads in a little bit of electrical tape because all I do is throw it in my drill. That'll protect the threads a little bit. Turn on my belt grinder, and then we'll take some down. I kind of have this down a little bit now that I've done it a few times, but the best method to do is just take a little bit off, go over the car, see if it fits. If it doesn't fit, take a little bit more off, but we'll go ahead, get this modified, and I'll show you how it fits in there. And then if you're curious on how much material we are removing, you can see on the left is the one we modified, and on the right is the stock ARP head. That's how much material we're removing. So again, you can be the judge on whether or not you would want to decide to grind these down to fit through the ABS sensor hole. All right, so the only other thing that I found that I had to do this on the other side too, is with that ring, the ABS ring here loose, you still don't quite have enough room. Sorry for the autofocus, it's being really annoying right now. You still don't really have enough room to get the stud through because this ABS ring still kind of sits a little proud there. So I just take my finger sander here, I come up and I just remove a very small amount of material here on the outside of the hub there. And then as I was sort of test fitting, I did notice that I just needed a little bit of room. Again, this thing doesn't want to autofocus, but you can see I just took a very, very small amount off there. I line up those two spots that I sanded down, and then our stud should slip right through. And so that is the easier way of installing these ARP extended wheel studs on your GD Impreza, or really any older Subaru that doesn't use a bolt-in style wheel hub assembly, and you don't really feel like pulling and then having to repress in your wheel bearings after installing the studs. This is a much faster, simpler, easier way of doing it. And feel free to go ahead and check out the full video, which I'll link below, where we go ahead and mess around with a few things and finally get these new wheels installed with the proper fitment here on my 2002 WRX. And as always, if you like the video, be sure to hit that like button. Feel free to leave a comment below, and if you're not subscribed already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks.